Good morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome to the April meeting of the Knoxville Historic Zoning Commission. This meeting is broadcast on several TV stations, so please remember to speak clearly and directly into the microphone. This time we'll take the roll, please.
Okay, for the record, the Knox County Historic Zoning Commission will not meet this month because they have no business. So for the Knoxville Historic Zoning Commission, Commissioner Blackburn.
Here.
Commissioner Eason.
Here.
Commissioner Bradley.
Here.
Commissioner Fox.
Here.
Commissioner Hearns.
Here.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Here.
Commissioner Randazzo.
Here.
Commissioner Tillman.
Here.
And Commissioner Webster is excused. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 8 present.
Thank you, Dallas. At this time, we'll have a swearing in of the speakers. If you wish to speak on an item, please stand now and answer with "I do" to the following affirmation. I solemnly affirm that the testimony I'm about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you. We ask that all speakers please limit their presentation to 5 minutes. We also ask that speakers please give their name and address before speaking. Please sign in at the desk by legibly printing your name and address. Appeals of any Historic Zoning Commission decisions may be made to Chancery Court within 60 days of the date of this meeting. This time we'll have approval of the last month's meeting minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Lindsay, will you give us the staff reports, please?
So the level 1 COAs issued since the last meeting at 2109 Jefferson Avenue is a reconstruction of the front porch with footprint, design, and materials to reflect the existing. That includes a shed roof, 6x6 square wood posts, wood flooring, and balusters set into the top and bottom rails. At 6461 Kingston Pike, that was the replacement of an existing wall sign with a new wall sign and a new sign face on a monument sign. At 1324 Granger Avenue, it was the replacement in kind of an asphalt shingle roof. At 303 East Oklahoma Avenue, the repair in kind of sections of wood lap siding and trim and column bases.
Great. Thanks, Lindsay. Now we'll go into our certificates of appropriateness. It looks like all our cases today are in Fort Sanders. First one is at 1704 Highland Avenue. It is case 4D24HZ.
Okay, so this is an exterior rehabilitation project with a new rear and right side addition. The exterior rehab scopes include removal of the existing vinyl siding, the installation of new fiber cement lap and shingle siding. The corner front porch, which you can see highlighted here, will be reconstructed in kind, with the corner hip roof to be reconstructed and then new square porch supports. The application also lists roof replacement, fascia and soffits, windows and doors, replacement of the foundation, replacement in patches of the foundation, removal of the exterior metal awnings and shutters. So you can see the site plan here. This is calling out the new rear and side addition is shown in green. That includes reconstruction of the part of the right side elevation. So the shed roof dormer on the right side will be removed. You can see that here. And a new 2-story gable roof massing will project from the rear with a centered secondary entry. And there's a new side gable massing projecting to the left. So this is the section that'll be added. These are both additions on the right side. This is the right side elevation that'll get 2 new gable massings that are evenly spaced. So some of the relevant findings, this one is a contributing resource to the historic district. Overall, the siding and new lap siding meets the Fort Sanders guidelines. The project should include appropriately sized vertical corner boards and window trim. They're not shown on the drawing. Removing sections of that rusticated concrete block foundation and replacing it with brick, that's not original to the structure. That is appropriate within the guidelines. Reconstructing the front porch roof and foundation also meets the guidelines. As you can see here, the front porch foundation extends out beyond where it's shown right now. So extending out to meet that footprint is appropriate. The inventory in the overlay report notes that these round fluted columns are original, so if possible, those should be replicated. Otherwise, larger 8x8 or 10x10 square columns would be appropriate instead of the square posts that are shown here. The drawings show the facade roof line as lower in pitch, so you can see it here, than the existing roof line on the house, which is relatively steep. The original roof pitch should be retained. The application proposes to remove sections of the rear elevation roof line to build that rear addition. So that's shown kind of just at this line here. However, the addition's roof line is stepped up in height, and it looks like it starts about here. As shown on the elevations, this roof line appears appropriate within the guidelines, but the applicant should provide a revised roof line drawing showing specifically what will be reconstructed. The front yard parking shown here does not meet the design guidelines. However, that driveway is existing, but it may not meet city engineering standards. Final modifications to the site plan will be necessary to meet engineering standards and the base zoning. So staff's recommending approval of 4D 24HC subject to the conditions that the applicant submit a revised roofline drawing showing the area to be reconstructed, the existing front pitch on the main gable to be retained, replication of the original round fluted columns or installation of 10x10 square columns, the final drawings to indicate corner boards and trim, and the site plan to meet city engineering and the base zoning standards.
Thank you, Lindsay. Is the applicant present?
Push that button.
John Holmes, 5914 Gray Gables Drive. I agree with everything Lindsay said. They have a hard time drawing those corner boards, but they'll be 1x6 smooth hardy like I've done on the other projects. The doors will be a quarter light craftsman style door, same that's been approved on other projects. For the front porch columns, there's only one fluted. There's actually 3 different styles there currently. I think it's going to be hard to replicate that. My preference would be 10x10 posts versus a fluted, unless somebody has some ideas of where to find some. But the roof pitch on the front, that'll be retained. There won't be any change to that front. That's just the best way to kind of measure it with what we had available.
Anything else, John?
No, that's
okay.
it. Yep.
All right. Do we have neighborhood input?
I don't have specific input at this time. I do know that Randall DeFord, the neighborhood representative, did work extensively with the applicant on this.
All right, good. All right, at this time, I'll open the floor up to the board with questions for the applicant.
Just for reference, what scale are the columns that you currently have shown?
They are 10x10 shown on the drawings.
Okay, thank you.
Can you fill me in on the story of the existing foundation right now?
From what I can gather, the previous owner had added this kind of funky block sometime in the 70s. I know he did renovations himself in that time frame, is what he told me, but it has all kinds of issues. It's got settling. It's not straight. Like on that right hand corner, you can see it drops almost 4 inches. I have no idea what's underneath it structurally wise. It's just kind of really funky, and it only covers part of the house too. It's the front and the right side. The rear is a stucco. Yeah.
So you couldn't see any brick in the crawl space on the inside?
On the rear, we can see brick. On the front, couldn't see any brick at all. It's actually enclosed living space. They're full walls and drywall, so you can't really see a lot.
Oh, there's a basement unit?
Oh yeah, there's a full height basement there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I agree with staff. I'm a little confused about the change in roof line. I'm not sure if that's a drawing issue or if it's...
It is. We had to measure it with the best we could from the ground, but that whole original front will remain as is. There won't be any changes other than just new siding and sheeting.
So those 3 like brackets or roof, I guess, rocker tails, I'm not sure.
Will you turn your mic on?
Oh, sorry. Will those 3 brackets remain on that front?
Yeah, we can keep those if you like. That's fine.
And the gables that are facing, I'm trying to remember the west side, I think the material shown on there, are they all going to be that shingle material or?
Yeah, we looked at maybe breaking it up with like a shaker style, staggered shaker, just to kind of make it not all siding, but I'm open to either option.
I guess typically you'd see like the top portion of the gable shaker, but you have a window kind of interrupting that.
We could do that, do the gable only instead of,
I wasn't just trying to suggest it. I was just,
I originally had the gable only, but the window takes up so much space. It ended up not being a lot of it. So I ended up doing the first floor and the gable. Then the lower level's brick.
Lindsay, did you have any specific thoughts on that siding choice for the gables?
I don't. I think the material itself is appropriate within the design guidelines, and the commission has the capacity to speak to breaking it up further.
Thanks. It makes sense given the window placement, how you've done it. If the other commissioners have opinions on it, I'd like to hear.
Any further questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
I can make a motion to approve with staff recommendations, all 5.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Do we want to note something about the front brackets?
Can we add that as a?
Are you talking about like the craftsman?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll add that as a 6th item, retention of the craftsman brackets at the roof line or at the roof soffit.
Is that okay, Christina? Or
Daytona, would you re-second with that addition?
Re-second.
Okay.
okay,
Thanks.
Thank you. All right. We have a motion properly re-seconded. No further discussion. We'll call the vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you. Okay, Lindsay. Our next case is at 316 South 17th Street. It's case number 4E24-HZ.
Okay. Similar situation here. This is an exterior rehab and new rear addition. So here's the existing house. The exterior rehab scopes include removal of the vinyl siding and installation of new fiber cement lap siding. This enclosed front porch will be removed, and a new front porch will be reconstructed. The basic exterior rehab elements are also retained in this description of work. And then the applicant also includes a new rear addition. So you can see here, it's a new, it's not just called out in green, it's this section as well. A new 3-story hipped roof massing that's projecting from the rear elevation. There's a 3-story side gable roof massing at the rearmost end. So there's sort of a hip here and then another gabled massing. We can see that on the elevation drawings. And the addition has a brick-clad foundation, lap siding, and evenly spaced windows with a secondary entry. So some of the findings here, this is actually listed as a non-contributing resource to the neighborhood conservation overlay. So that was in 2000. That's typically what we use here. It was listed as a contributing resource to the National Register District in 1980. So some of that work was probably done between then. Overall, the exterior rehab scopes of work do meet the design guidelines. The project should, again, incorporate the corner boards and trim, which aren't shown. The eave overhangs, the craftsman-style roof brackets should be retained, and the elevation drawings do show the retention of that exterior brick chimney. Removing the front porch addition and reconstructing a front gable roof meets the guidelines. The application says rebuild brick columns, but the drawings do show these thin square wood posts. The porch supports should be designed more proportionate to that wide porch and appropriate for a craftsman's style. Again, the roofline drawing shows a smaller section as the addition, but that 3-story hipped roof massing is an addition. The applicant should provide a revised roofline drawing and retain the existing roof pitch on the house. So the main element for discussion here, the addition meets guidelines for placement. It will be taller than the existing house. The Fort Sanders design guidelines don't speak specifically to height of new additions, though most design guidelines do. The commission should discuss this height and scale of the addition. Final modifications to the site plan will be necessary to meet city engineering standards and the standards of the base zoning code. So the Historic Zoning Commission should discuss that height and scale of the rear addition, pending any additional conditions. The conditions of approval are that the applicant submit a revised roof line drawing to staff, the existing roof pitch on the original side gable house be retained, revision of the front porch supports that would be submitted to staff. The final drawings indicate appropriately sized corner boards and window trim, and the site plan meet engineering and zoning standards.
Thank you, Lindsay. Mr. Holmes?
John Holmes, 5914 Gray Gables Drive. He's got a good summary there. This house is rather unique, as you can see from the pictures. I did work a lot with Randall, the neighborhood rep, on this one to come up with something that would work. The number one thing they wanted was to see that front porch reopened. I had 6x6 posts drawn in the design, but I'm open to other options there. There's a lot of concrete on this project. So the entire front yard has been concreted over sometime in the 80s, 90s, something like that. So like in that lower right picture, that concrete there on the side will have to be removed. The concrete in the front will be removed. When you get towards the rear of the property, there's a pretty steep elevation change of about 5 feet. It's almost a one-to-one slope up to the parking area. So from that alley side, the project at the rear will appear like it's 3 levels, but on the other side, it'll just be, and at the rear, it'll be 2, and at the front. So we tried to minimize that height. As you can see in the front elevation, that height difference. The addition is a little bit taller. I think when you stand there on the sidewalk, you won't be able to see that difference at all. There might be a little margin to reduce it by a foot if we change the pitch of the roof a little bit. But we did try to limit that so it wouldn't be visible. And we did explore some other designs for that rear addition, but in the end, we went through about 4 or 5 different ones, and we settled this would be the best overall.
Okay. All right. Any neighborhood input?
I don't have additional input.
Thank you. All right. We'll open the floor board for questions.
I have some questions about the front porch. Is there any of the front porch structure still visible from the inside?
No, not from the inside. No, just the brick foundation is basically all we can see so far.
I think it'd be nice to see a little more detailing of that front gable for the porch. It looks like it's just a flat plane in the elevations. I would assume that there might be some more detailing if there were original pieces still available.
So on the front porch, we tried to keep the original shed or pitch of that gable roof that's there. So it would be rebuilt with the same pitch, but currently it's living space, so it's pretty hard to see anything original. Yeah.
I think what Commissioner Easton is also asking about is the ceiling and tablature of that porch, if that, like typically craftsman.
And also if there was some distinction of where the beams would be, instead of it just coming to a stop.
Oh, yeah. So we would typically do like a 1 foot fascia board, like an overhang, and then would have a stained tongue and groove ceiling on the new porch. Yeah.
Do you know if the eave overhangs are originally that length? They're pretty long. Is that just a cover for a door for a side entrance?
It actually looks original. It's very rotten.
Okay.
It is unusual because it's like a 30-inch tail on both sides. But then they've added doors. I don't think those doors there are original.
Is it wider than the main massing of the house, or is it?
You can see it right there. It overhangs the house about a foot.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's appropriate when you rebuild it to retain that or not. Yeah.
And as Lindsay said, with the new ridge line, generally raising the height of a building is inappropriate, and we've disapproved other Fort Sanders applications for that reason. How much taller is it? 2 feet?
Right now, it's about 30 inches right now.
30 inches. I also see your point. If you're standing at the front, you probably wouldn't see that ridge line. But I also think from a structural point of view, it probably would be easier to have them be an even ridge line and connect. And it would obviously look better in a straight line elevation and how we evaluate it. But I'm open to what other commissioners think about that point of view height difference versus the elevation height difference.
I think that added additional height definitely makes the massing of that addition seem larger than the original of the house. Whether that's the intent or not, that's,
The intent was to really just ensure we can have enough head height in that addition to make it functional. And I think you can see in the bottom right picture elevation there, the pitch of that gable's already been reduced some to kind of lower that elevation. I think we could probably drop that side gable down another foot, maybe 18 inches, and then drop the entire ridge line down another 18 inches. That would get it at least lower. It's going to change the pitch in the middle there, but I think it's doable.
I think that gets us closer to the consistency point that Commissioner Tillman was making about how we haven't approved taller structures.
Sure.
The other thing we normally consider is the neighboring properties and how the roof line compares to that. But this is unique, being surrounded by the parking lot and also being uphill of the church. But I would be interested to see the height of the church compared to the height of this home.
I don't know if there's a view in there of the church, and it's been a long time since the church did their COA. Are they adding height to that building?
No, they don't have they are not
Okay.
moving forward with the addition that the
Okay.
Historic Zoning Commission has reviewed. They're just doing exterior rehab. So the church is kind of remaining in its existing conditions. Where are we? Oh. So this church building will remain as is with some exterior rehab scopes.
Any other questions or comments from the board? If not, like entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve based on staff recommendation with an additional number 6 to lower the height of that roof to the extent possible, with Lindsay to approve drawings for that.
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. John, I just wanted to commend you for your diligence on these projects. I know we've been through quite a few of them over the last few years, and you've really done well to work with us in the neighborhood, and just wanted to thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Appreciate y'all working with me as well. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right, next case is still in Fort Sanders, is 1800 White Avenue. It is case 4G24-HZ.
Okay.
Lindsay?
So the parcels in question right now are addressed at 1800 and 1804 White Avenue. You can see them called out on the screen. And just to give you guys some locational context, And we can go through that further. So as you can see right here, these are the parcels facing White Avenue, and this is 18th Street here. And, I know we had this conversation last week or last month. So this is a new multi-unit residential building. So the building proposed for commission review is this section of a larger building outside of the Fort Sanders NC overlay. So what I've called out in blue here, this is the section in the overlay. It will connect to a multi-unit building on the west fronting White Avenue. And then there's a proposed overhead alley crossing to a building fronting Cumberland Avenue. The building is proposed for the rear of two houses fronting 1800 and 04 White Avenue, and that's land that's currently surface parking. So this building is going to front 18th Street. You can see here, that's the cross street, and it measures approximately 66 feet wide by 100 feet deep. So that's the section that we're discussing, and you can see additional site plans in your application packet. So this is a flat roof building that's 5 stories tall on the 18th Street elevation. The building will be clad in brick veneer on the east elevation and the eastmost bays of the side elevations. Additional exterior siding materials are corrugated metal siding and fiber cement panel siding. The facade is 10 bays wide and symmetrically arranged. It has a central 4 bays on a recessed massing, and then the outer bays project out towards the street. There are recessed front porches with metal railings, double hung windows on the front, and then we have some casement windows. Oh no, they're double hung windows on these side elevations. So to clarify what you can see on the elevation drawings here, this is showing the side elevation of the buildings with the sort of shadows of those existing houses. That's the north elevation. And then the alley elevation will be immediately adjoining the other new building, which we can see in this rendering here will be taller. So just some of the findings I'll run through. These houses are contributing resources to the Fort Sanders district and overlay. The properties are zoned CU4, so they're subject to the form-based code for Cumberland Avenue that goes 1 to 2 blocks along Cumberland. Typically, we see properties with residential or office zoning. 1800 and 1804 are actually the only 2 parcels in the neighborhood conservation overlay that have this Cumberland Avenue zoning. So this isn't an instance we will see again. The form-based code speaks to form, scale, and building elements instead of specific uses. They are relatively large buildings, as we're familiar with, particularly along Cumberland Avenue. The goal of preserving these 2 historic houses while developing the broader site to the Cumberland Avenue code is commendable. The building is proposed to be set approximately 8 feet from the front property line along 18th Street. The front of this building will be aligned with the existing side setbacks of the houses along White Avenue. The building will serve as a transition in height from the larger section fronting Cumberland and the historic houses along White. The building meets the guidelines for scale and massing, and it breaks up the facades with bays or porches that are consistent with historic buildings in the neighborhood. The application uses brick cladding on the front elevation and these eastmost bays of the side elevation to connect it with historic multifamily buildings in Fort Sanders. Metal panel siding is not directly referenced in the design guidelines, but it is used as a secondary material on the facade. It serves to sort of visually reduce this overall massing. Fiber cement siding is frequently approved in Fort Sanders. Typically the board and batten is approved as a secondary design. This south elevation will not be largely visible from the street just due to this existing building here. And so in the opinion of staff, the siding pattern proposed for the side elevations is appropriate within the guidelines. So the staff recommendation is to approve 4G 24HC subject to meeting all requirements of the base zoning and the administrative review committee, and the final site plan should meet engineering standards.
Thank you, Lindsay. Is the applicant present?
Yes, my name's Ben Mullins, attorney at France McCollum Seymour, 550 West Main Street. I'm representing the applicant, Core Knoxville 18th LLC. I also have Alyssa Galena and John Kubaugh from Core Knoxville, and Jay Silverman, who's going to do most of the talking this morning from Dwell Design Studios. He's the architect. I just wanted to introduce my team and this project and really thank Lindsay for all the work we've done. I know this was before you last month just for an informal review, and we took that feedback that we received from you and tried to incorporate that in these revised designs and to give you some additional information that you're asking for. I do appreciate this is a very unique circumstance. It's not really setting a precedent because these two parcels are the only two parcels in the NC overlay that are also in the form-based code. And so what we really try to do with this is, it's important to us to keep those existing contributing structures, but also then to take those, two back portions, there's fairly deep lots that are just used as surface parking, and to be able to incorporate it into the overall design of our project while still being respectful to the form-based code and the NC overlay with our design elements. And I think we really have tried to do that. We met with Lindsay several times on this, even before we filed the application, and we have been in contact with the Mr. DeFord and Ms. Webster, the neighborhood reps, and sharing our plans with them by email as we've been going along. So we really appreciate staff's recommendation on this, and I'll turn this over to Mr. Silverman, who can dig into the architectural details. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mullins.
Thank you so much. Jay Silverman, 1280 Hightower Trail, Atlanta, Georgia, 30350. And it's great to see everybody in person. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for your help with this. And I'll just briefly walk you through, first of all, some of our design concepts, just as a reminder. And then second of all, I'll talk about a few of the changes we made at the recommendation of this board. So we took for inspiration the only existing historic apartment structure that we could find in the district, Fort Sanders Manor, as an inspiration for the design for this project, and that's one of the reasons we chose a flat roof for the building. In addition to the fact that putting a pitched roof on the structure we felt would increase the height and not necessarily complement the adjacent or the homes that are on the side as well. So we designed the building. It's 4 stories with basement, and we created a base, middle, and top, and created the attic story that you see from 18th Street there with the different material in order to assist in breaking down the scale of the new building and transitioning to the taller portion of the building on Cumberland Avenue. As was referenced before, we used the historic window patterning, the 2/1 proportion for the double hung windows and single double hung windows instead of ganging the windows in order to complement the design of the homes and meet the character of the district. At the advice of this panel, we removed the balcony the balconies that face the historic homes. So that leaves more distance between the new structure and the historic homes, and also addresses the fact that the cantilever balcony design was not in keeping with the district. So that was the major change we made. In addition, we provided the information on the height of the existing homes and the elevation of the alley, and some more information on the bridge structure that connects to the existing structure, although that is beyond and outside of the district. So that was highlighted in the plan view that you saw before. And then, so basically, in addition to other than the additional drawings and the balcony change, those were the primary changes. I think we did add some clarity to the doors that are located from the basement parking behind the residential units to access the street, and looked at the materiality along that facade a little bit more closely. This drawing that you see, the north elevation on White Avenue, shows how the building is 4 stories from a zoning perspective, and the way that the 18th Street slopes down and creates that opportunity for the basement condition, just like the adjacent home on 18th Street. So. Let me see if I've got anything else pertinent, but available for any questions if you have.
Thank you, Mr. Silverman. Do we have any neighborhood input?
Yes, I received one comment from Randall DeFord saying this will be the best looking building in the Cumberland Avenue district.
Wow, high praise. All right. We'll open the floor up to questions or comments. Questions for the applicant. I have a question for you, Mr. Silverman. Is the brick full brick or is it just a face brick?
That is planned to be full depth brick.
Great, thank you.
I appreciate you taking some of our feedback despite some of the confusion and, what we were looking at and the technical difficulties we had last month. I saw all these people here and I was hoping we had some more public comment, but that's all right, My only real concern is I've never seen a building in the historic overlay connect to a building outside of the historic overlay. What exactly is that connection going to look like? Is it the same height? I don't want to call this an appendage because that's a disservice to your design, but I'm a little concerned about how that'll look from a public perspective.
Yeah, and it's spanning the alley for white, and the actual connection will be outside of the historic overlay itself. It's not going to be part of the historic overlay, and you can see in the diagram there that it's pretty far back in depth. You're really not going to be able to see that from 18th unless you are actually making your way down White Avenue. So it's not going to affect the viewscape from 18th or the historic overlay that's part of this form-based district. But it is, I maybe you can speak to the height on that if you want to, even though it's outside of the overlay itself.
Yeah, what we haven't really focused on that portion of the building for this presentation because it is outside of the district. But our approach is to continue the architecture of this building until it meets the other portion when it goes outside of the district. But though the scale and massing are fairly similar for the portion of the structure outside the district, it is different, and so that this will read as its own building, more like the character of the buildings on Cumberland, where it's kind of shoulder to shoulder to an adjacent structure with a different design.
I agree with the thought process of the alley portion being all metal. Did you consider the north elevation of White Avenue continuing that brick along that north side?
The alley elevation facing Cumberland Avenue is just across the alley from another structure, so you won't really see that.
I agree with that one. I was curious what you thought about if you considered it for the White Avenue one, because that would be visible between houses and to those houses.
We felt like bringing it back, the brick back a significant depth, like 20 feet, would give you the strong read of the brick back there. The houses do block the majority of the levels below the attic story, so we felt that would give it that authentic character rather than just turning the corner a little bit with brick. And there are different materials on the portion of the building that are outside of the district.
Overall, I really think you made some good material choices, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Is there an awning, or not an awning, a parapet wall at the top of the roof?
There is. You can kind of see the expression up at the top of the parapet. The roof is just slightly below that line of change in the cornice design of the building.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
What did he answer for your question about whether he was bringing some of the brick over to the White Avenue side?
Say that again?
You asked him a question about...
Yeah, I asked if he considered bringing the brick across the north elevation, and he answered that most of it would be blocked by the existing homes, and they'd already brought it back an even amount to the other alley.
Okay, so is that yes or no?
I asked him if he thought about it. Yes, they had thought about it.
Okay.
I didn't ask him to do it. It wasn't my preference. It was just, you can...
I do have an additional clarification. The massing of the building returns. It's not very visible on that elevation, but you can see it in plan. The brick is actually going to return into an inside corner, so that'll aid that. So the brick is not just going back 20 feet and then stopping and then a material change. There's actually a massing change in the building that informed our decision to stop the brick at that point too.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to add that I think that detailing of the brick return is nice, and appreciate that it comes back 25 feet and it doesn't just stop, and that you've got some massing variation there too. That looks very nice. And I think the reduction or the elimination of the balconies on that side was a nice choice also.
Yeah, we're happy.
This really isn't our purview, but just more curiosity. Where are you going to drain the roof to? Obviously, you have internal drainage. What does that connect to? Just back to the city storm system?
That's correct. We're planning an internal drain system, and it'll be piped inside the building, and then into a stormwater facility for as required for water quality, and then into the system.
Okay.
Lindsay, would you mind showing the staff recommendations again? I'd like to make a motion to approve with the 2 staff recommendations.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion. It's been properly seconded. Is there any further discussion? If not, we'll call the vote. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
All right. Other business. Recommendation on H overlay for the Sun Sphere at 810 Clinch Avenue.
Okay. So I'll let the applicant speak to this too, but I just want to give you guys a quick primer. So the Historic Zoning Commission is the first body that reviews a historic overlay, whether that's for a district or a landmark site. So in this instance, the applicants are applying for a historic zoning overlay just on the Sun Sphere itself. I can show you the map, but it should be in your in the application packet as well. So the Historic Zoning Commission is charged with making a recommendation to the Planning Commission on the appropriateness of a historic zoning overlay. So in general, staff recommends approval of a historic zoning overlay for the Sun Sphere, noting that it meets the criteria for a landmark overlay zoning. It is associated with an event that's made a significant contribution to local history, and then it also possesses high artistic values. The site's eligible for its representation of the 1982 World's Fair, which was a landmark event for Knoxville. It meets the 7 aspects of integrity for the National Register of Historic Places. And so one note that I'd say, it's constructed by 1982, the Sun Sphere has not reached the 50-year mark, which typically qualifies a property for listing on the National Register. Our local zoning doesn't refer to that 50-year requirement. The city may opt to nominate the Sun Sphere or the World's Fair Park site to the National Register when it hits 50 years old, or make a case under the criteria consideration G, which relates to exceptional importance within the past 50 years. So that's sort of a to be determined. There's just an additional note here that staff recommends that an expanded statement of significance be prepared for the Sun Sphere. I've left this open because I think it could be prepared by the property owner, the applicant, or planning staff. Would be very happy to work on that. So that could assist in the preparation of a future nomination to the National Register. So again, staff's recommending approval of the historic overlay. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Lindsay. Just one moment, please. To clarify what our responsibility is in this process, basically, we're voting to send this to whom?
The Planning Commission.
The Planning
So
Commission.
you'll recommend approval of the historic zoning overlay. And then the Planning Commission is the body that places that overlay on it through a rezoning.
Okay, everybody understand? All right, good. Is the applicant present, and would you like to speak?
Sure. I'm Kim Bumpus, president of Visit Knoxville, 301 South Gay Street. We are just really excited to take this first step with the Sun Sphere. A couple of things that you may not know, since we reopened the observation deck on February 22nd of 2022 with a minimal charge for visitors to create the Sun Sphere Fund, we've welcomed over 117,000 visitors from all 50 states and 57 countries. So while those visitors didn't come here just to go to the Sun Sphere, when they got here, they visited the Sun Sphere. So this is really the first step to start to recognize the cultural significance that the Sun Sphere is to Knoxville. So I just wanted you to have that information.
Thank you. I guess we don't have any neighborhood input on this. All right, we'll open the floor up to the board for any questions or comments. Any questions for Ms. Bumpus?
Do we need to develop, or at what point in the process are guidelines developed for the landmark?
Yeah, sure. So that's referenced in this staff memo. So the purpose of the local historic overlay, the relevant guidelines are typically just the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. Those are the ones that are assigned with the landmark overlays. I was speaking with the applicants prior to this, and we've noted the fact that we would at some point want to identify some additional design guidelines that are specific to this structure because it's very unique, and we'd want to identify some of those elements. And so that's something that would come back to the Historic Zoning Commission for review. And that could come alongside an expanded statement of significance and come back in front of this body. It wouldn't have to go in front of the Planning Commission, just HCC.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to contribute here. This is a weird one. It's a weird building. I'm trying to imagine what the guidelines would look like. I'm trying to imagine what any change to this building, besides filling it full of wigs, would look like, and I don't know what it would be. I assume really what the protection that we're approaching is if there were a different owner and they wanted to demolish it, this would be our recognizing a point in time that this is important to our city and we should preserve it.
100%. And the owner is the city of Knoxville, so I don't foresee any change in ownership.
I think it would also help if there was additions proposed or changes made to the building, like if they didn't want it to be gold anymore and they wanted to replace with a different kind of glass. Not saying that that would be a possibility, but I'm just saying it would offer protection against that if it was a local landmark.
Yes, and I will offer the note that the visitor center that Ms. Bumpus is referencing has been approved by the design review board already. So there is a design review body that's already sort of seen stuff on this. They wouldn't come back in front of us though.
So Lindsay, what did you say our role here today is? Again?
Sure. So you guys are reviewing the, basically you're saying that this meets the criteria for a historic overlay. And you're making a recommendation on approval of the overlay to the Planning Commission.
Okay, so we'll make the
Just
recommendation.
that top one right there. So, yeah.
And then you all have already decided that it meets criteria consideration G, which is kind of like an exception to the rule.
Correct. I think if they were to make, we don't have that reference in our code and our local zoning, but I think that case could be made should a National Register nomination be prepared.
So really at this point, we just need them to flesh out a little bit more as far as.
Correct. And so that's that second, we would want to prepare an expanded statement of significance for the Sun Sphere. And that can be collaborative.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to add that I think that this is very appropriate for us to put the overlay on us and the designation. And just as a young architecture student, I worked at the World's Fair in '82 that summer, and I think it's great to have something still visible from the World's Fair.
All right. Sure.
So I'll make a motion that we move forward with staff recommendation that you all come back with an expanded statement of significance for the recommendation.
The first one.
Yes, and that we will approve the staff's first recommendation and that you also come back with an expanded statement for significance.
Okay.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion properly seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. All right, thank you. I think that concludes our business for today. Thank you very much. Thank you, board. We are adjourned.